Dave Strain. The White River High and South Dakota State grad guided Rapid City Central's Cobblers to statewide prominence in his 24 years as the Cobblers basketball coach. Strain's Cobblers won state titles in 1969 and 1980 and were runners-up 6 times. The 1969 Cobbler team will be remembered as one of the state's best, with such players as John Dutton, Rich Gary, Steve Withorn, and Jack Tennyson. Strain's strong relationship with the city's Indian population was a key component in the Cobblers' success. He coached at Deadwood for 3 years, then came to Rapid City as an assistant coach. His overall record was 398 wins against just 231 losses. Strain led White River as a player to the 1949 State B Tourney. Strain played for the Jackrabbits, and he was the first recipient of the Ralph Ginn Coaching Award at South Dakota State. In 1985, he was the first active coaching recipient of the South Dakota Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Shrine.
I looked everywhere for a week for a Pendleton sport coat, and I could not find one in this state because Dave owns them all. Dave will be presented by Dick James. Dave Strain, welcome to the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the first question I got asked when I walked through the door tonight was, where was that plaid jacket? Actually, rumor has it that Governor Rounds wants to borrow it. He's going on a hunting trip with Vice President Cheney this fall. I would like to extend my appreciation, our family's appreciation for the committee's work on this, Ron and Deb Maxwell and Jerry Miller and people like this really prodded me along and kept me well informed of what to do. I am from White River. How many know where White River is? How many don't know where it is? How many don't care? I was glad to be from that particular town. My folks really supportive in the athletic end of it. And it was a tough district in there with players like Eldon Byrie, who's here tonight, Gordy Fosness, people such as that, Dick Black. And they made life very interesting there. My dad wanted to know what I was getting into coaching for. He says, my dad raced horses, and he says, coaches are a lot like racehorse trainers. He says, there's only 2 things going to happen, the ones that are fired and the ones that are about to be fired. Well, I only had 2 jobs in my life, and I was fired from both of those. Well, actually 3. My dad fired me once. My son's holding up 2 fingers. He fired me twice. Well, that's 4 in there. Appreciate those White River days. Fred Liddell was a coach. He won a state championship, beating Jim Marking's Hyde team in the finals. So there's some good basketball coming from that particular country. Dean Mann was one of the first to greet me tonight, and he was here at the state tournament in '49 when we come, and as a student helper on the teams. And Mark Eklund's here tonight, a '69 player for me, and I appreciate Fred Liddell and the White River background in there. At SDSU, had some favorites of Jim Emery come out to our branding, and not that he's looking for 5'7" guards that couldn't shoot, but he was one reason I went to South Dakota State, and there, of course, Jim Marking, Jim Iverson, Ralph Ginn, all these people made a very big impact on my playing career and coaching career. I'd like to thank the people that really put this on. A lot of my experiences coming to Sioux Falls hasn't been all that great. They used to handle us pretty good on here with Washington and Lincoln, and we got some pretty good lessons here, but we had some good times along with it. And you people in Sioux Falls, you do things in a big way. I know you had trouble getting that zip feed meal down, but other than that, it looked pretty good. I think I really helped Jim Iverson, Jim Marking, Sox Walsett, Bud Belk and I especially, because Kent Hyde, who's the honoree here tonight, and Jim Sutton, who is an honoree, they watched some of our games. They were in high school, and they said, by gosh, if we can't make it here, we can't make it anywhere. And so from then on, I stayed at the top of the pack. Family's here tonight. My wife, Betty, I know she's looking at that video and wondering really what we do to deserve this. And my daughter Karen's back there rolling her eyes back into her head, says like one of those "give me a break" expressions. And our youngest daughter Nancy here, I remember when she's about as old as our granddaughters here. We just got back from a tough loss from our crosstown rival Stevens, a game we should have won, didn't. And I remember coming to the door that night after the game, and the dog didn't even come to the door. And we walked in, and they're all sitting there, our son Jim and Nancy and Karen and Betty, and Nancy just blurted out, she says, "Daddy," she says, you just ain't a very good coach. And my wife Betty jumped up and scolded her and sent her to bed and told her to never use the word "ain't" again. As a result, we got 2 English teachers out of the deal. And would you three stand? Jim and Nancy and Karen and Betty, would you all stand up, please? Yeah. And we have five granddaughters here, Molly and Andrea and Sarah and Stevie, and who am I missing there now? Oh, we got Lucy there. Okay, why don't you 5 stand up then, please? Yeah. And grandson Max. Max, you're kind of outnumbered, but we're here today and there. And somebody's telling Molly, she says, "You look just like your grandpa Dave." And she says, "No, I don't have white hair and yellow teeth." And, you know, I tell you, it's really good to have a predominance of women in a coaching family. They really put a reality check on you. Once again, I did start at Deadwood. I was 3 years there. We were 1-16 in the middle of my second year. Being interviewed by the radio, they says, "What do you think?" I said, "We're going to be a lot better next year." Middle of next year, I wish the heck I'd have never said that. We went to Rapid City, and I think Dave Ploof and I both tonight, we coached at the same school, and can thank Bill Mitchell for bringing it into a system that would let us dominate some things at times and maybe set the standard a little bit. Bob Cook and early administrators here tonight. I'd like to recognize Don Linder, late Ron Wood. John Egan gave me a call the other day, Bruce Conley. They really treated us well here from the Sioux Falls paper, and I appreciate their support all the way through. The native athlete has really been a big part of Cobbler legacy, going back to Vince Whipple and Chief Miller before, and Billy Mills has been such a great inspiration to the native athlete, especially from South Dakota, that it's made it easier for us to bring those kind of athletes to the front. I see quite a few officials here tonight. It's always good to see basketball officials. I know they're tickled to be invited anywhere. But you had one of the great ones last year in Pat Morrison, and I think Pat probably done more for basketball in South Dakota than probably any one person in there. And one thing about it, you couldn't get the last word on him. In '69, when we won it, we had John Dutton. We really had some outstanding players along with Mark here. And we were playing Millbank. Harvey Schaefer's the coach of Millbank, one of Jim Marking's athletes, and they hadn't scored for quite a while in that third quarter, and they steal the ball from us and go to lay it up, and John Dutton comes out of nowhere, and he's All-American for Nebraska in football and All-Pro, and he leaps, and he's 6'7", he slams that ball against the backboard. He catches it right at the top of the apex there, and it rattles the board, and it bounces clear back to half line. And after the game, Marking says, Morrison, he says, that should have been a technical foul. And Pat says, look, Marking, he says, if Dutton, he blocked that thing south of T, and it ended up north of Hartford. And he says, sometimes a no call is a good call. Appreciate being here tonight and being able to coach in South Dakota. And if you had to sum it up, I think an explanation point would be like when William Faulkner, the Pulitzer Prize winner and accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, said, I believe in the immortality of man, and as long as there's any good literature out there, it'll be written about the truths of the hearts. And it'll be the same hearts that we find in any athlete, compassion and pride and honor, courage, love. Maybe Tom T. Hall said it a little easier when he sang, I like losers that try, winners that cry, old dogs, kids, and watermelon wine, and I appreciate being here tonight.
Bob Swanhorst, one of the leading scorers in South Dakota boys basketball history. Swanhorst was an outstanding coach and college player as well. At Cresbard, Swanhorst scored 2,404 points, which is now number 4 in state history. It was number 2 when he graduated. He led Cresbard to a state Class B runner-up finish in 1956 and state title in 1957, and set a record for points in the championship round with 91. Recruited by 7 Division I schools, Swanhorst chose Augustana. Freshmen were ineligible then. The 6'3", 200-pounder started 3 years, was an All-North Central Conference first team twice, and set Augustana records by averaging 15.2 points and 15.5 rebounds in his 60-game career. He was invited to a tryout camp with the Chicago Bulls. Swanhorst coached at Webster, Huron High, Huron College, and Burnsville, Minnesota. He guided Webster to the 1966 State A title and Huron College to the 1974 NAIA National Tournament. His Huron College basketball teams were SDIC champs 3 times.
Presenting for Bob is Bruce Conley. And Bob is now an author. He's written a book. So if you don't know where Cresbard is, chances are you'll find out by the time he's done. Welcome to the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame, Bob.
I'd like to thank the committee for my nomination. And Vern McKee is not with us anymore, but I know he had a lot to do with it too. So I'd like to introduce the table over here, my wife Trish and our boys Robbie and Randy and their wives, if they'll stand up. They put up with an awful lot. Little Jack is only 8 years old, so he's been here all night. That's quite an accomplishment. I'd also like to introduce my brothers, John, David, and Eldon, and their wives are back there someplace, if they'll stand up, and my wonderful sister, Rosemary. In 1957, we were fortunate to win the State B, and our coach, that's 49 years ago, our coach, last week, I visited him in a hospital, and he said, I'm gonna make it, and he's here tonight. I'd like him to stand up. Frank Philippek was coach at Florence, and he came over and coached that year. On our team, 12 players, 5 have passed away, but Dale Melius, Lauren Nina Bormer, and Darwin Holt are here. I'd like them with their wives to stand up. There's 2 other members of that team, and they're out of state and cannot be here, but I'm very proud that they showed up tonight. Especially, I have some so-called friends in Sioux Falls that belittle my scoring always. They say I did it against 7th and 8th graders in those little schools back there. But anyway, we've got some old comets here that can verify that. I'd also like to introduce, without being discriminatory, with all the good fans at Crestbard, one that's especially remembers the old days, and that's Frances Perry. If she'd stand up. Frances Perry has followed Crestbard sports for 65 years. And last year we were back there hunting, and she came over to the table, and she remembered more about our Provo game in 1957 than I did. So her memory is keen, and she remembers what was going on. The situation with Gordy Fosness and myself has gone on for some years. I guess we'll be locked together forever because of a game that's very famous for him, very infamous for me. I'm probably the only coach in the world that had I got to get this right now because the story's told so many times, it's a little different every time. But we're playing for the conference championship and probably the #1 rated team in the old District 12. There's 1 second to go. We're fouled and make the first free throw. Now we're 1 point ahead. 1 second to go. 80% free throw shooter at the line. How can you lose that ball game? You just about can't lose it. But there's a timeout or something in there, and like all coaches, you think you have to do something. So I decided to tell everybody to get off the line, get back. This game's over, so we won't foul anybody. Well, what happened? The ball hits that back of the rim just perfect and bounces out. 1 second left, you know. It falls on the floor and rolls around. One of their guards picks it up, winds up like a discus thrower, and throws it the length of the floor. It takes a long time for a basketball to cover 80 feet, and you're sitting there watching it. Well, that basketball hit the bottom of the net and went in. By the way, I finally heard the horn go off. On top of that, the scorekeeper's dad and 2 uncles are Crestbard High School graduates. So that was a situation that I don't think Gordy and I will ever forget. It just kind of locked us together forever. Many great experiences coaching. I won't get into that. I see Clyde Hagan is here tonight. I couldn't be prouder of him. He made a coach out of me back in 1966 also. So I'd like to thank everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, particularly the committee and everyone associated with the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Bob Oates, the Aberdeen Central and Yankton College grad, has been a sports writer for 70 years, almost all of it in Los Angeles. He is the nation's senior active sports writer, writing a weekly column for the Los Angeles Times. A nationally recognized authority on pro football, Oates is the only sports writer who votes for the Heisman Trophy, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he's been doing so for more than 35 years. He's been a sports writer since 1936, when he covered the first Chicago All-Star football game for the Yankton Press and Dakotan. Until this year, he had covered every Super Bowl. He covered the Rams throughout their 49 years in California. At the same time, he covered the Rose Bowl and other big college games, and he has covered the World Series since 1959. The author of 4 books, Oates worked for the Aberdeen Morning American and Yankton P&D before moving to Los Angeles in the 1930s.
Mr. Oates had eye surgery yesterday in Los Angeles, so he's unable to be with us, but he did send us a letter. You would have thought it would have been more well-written than this, but being facetious. I'm not going to read it all to you, but he did promise Terry Nielsen that he will be here next year. He's already made plans. He says, with deep regret and great sorrow, I have concluded today I will be unable to attend the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremonies April 8th in Sioux Falls, where I lived until July 1937. For several months, I've had an eye problem that won't go away, and they've decided to do surgery. They say it isn't serious. I have no reason to disbelieve that, but anytime they start working around your eyes, you want to take care. The unfortunate turn of events is particularly unsettling to me because I've always believed that the highest honor that can come to any man or woman is that awarded by his or her home state. When you've been in sports for 7 decades, as I have, sectional and national attention can be expected on occasion, but nothing whatever compares with recognition by people from the state where you were born, where you went to high school and college, in which you still take a deep interest. Of my continuing interest in South Dakota, Bernie Hunhoff can tell you. So I'll always be grateful to the people who voted me into what I think of as America's greatest sports Hall of Fame, yours. Those are the words of Bob Oates.
Dave Ploof. Under Ploof's guidance, Rapid City Post 22 has become one of the most successful American Legion baseball programs in the country. The Austin, Minnesota native and Mankato State grad has coached Post 22 for 41 years, compiling 2,190 victories and just 683 losses. Under Ploof, Post 22 has won 31 state titles and advanced to the Legion World Series 8 times. In 1993, Post 22 went 70-5 and won the national title, the only South Dakota team ever to do so. From 1970 to 1987, Post 22 won 18 state titles in a row, a national record. An all-state second baseman who once had a tryout with the St. Louis Cardinals, Ploof was named National Coach of the Year by the U.S. Baseball Federation in 1982. About 25 of his players have signed pro contracts, and 3, Dave Collins, Kelvin Torvey, and Mark Ellis, have played in the major leagues. Ploof was the wrestling coach at Rapid City Central from 1969 to 1993 and led the Cobblers to 3 state titles.
Don Lindner of the Rapid City paper will present to Dave Ploof.
The first thing I want to say, I've known Dave Strain quite a few years of my adult life, and I didn't know there were so many Strains. It's quite an honor for me to be inducted into the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame, and I want to thank the committee. In Rapid City, American Legion Baseball, we've been very successful, and to be successful, you have to have total commitment, and we have that by the players, the coaches, the parents, the fans, and the community. I want to tell you about our first 2 World Series that we went to. Our first one was in Manchester, New Hampshire. The weather was great. The ballpark was beautiful. Everything was top shelf. We won the first game, suicide squeeze in the extra innings. Our winning pitcher was Jeff Andrews. Jeff is still in baseball. He's a AAA coach for who, Dick? Pittsburgh Pirates. Our second World Series, we went to Mississippi. We come from Rapid City. It's quite dry, the weather. We go down there, the humidity is 100. The temperature is 107. We step out of our hotel room, the water just jumps out of our body. It's hot. We go to play our first game. The boys try to find shade. They go under any place they could find. The ball game starts. It's about in the first inning. The umpire behind home plate, he passes out. They bring an ambulance on the field. They carry him off the field. I tell the guys, now you look, you saw that umpire. He was heavy, he was out of shape. It's just happened, it's kook, it's not going to happen again. I just finished saying that. The first base umpire, which was skinny, in shape, passed out. They came, hauled him away in the ambulance. We played 2 baseball games and came home to Rapid City. It's really been fun, my first 41 years, and like I told somebody, I hope the second 41 years is as fun as the first 41 years. I would like to mention some people out here. My nephew, Tyler Newman, he's playing football for Sioux Falls College. He's going to be a good one. Last year in the championship in the state tournament, he was our bat boy when he was young. He had a 3-run home run against us. He was trying to beat us. Great job, Tyler. I got a little story. The Ellises, Mark Ellis's mother and dad are here, Les and Eileen. Their grandparents are here. This was back when Mark was at Florida. We all went down to Florida to see Mark play. Ben, Pearl. Pearl, people get to know her here. She can make pies just out of this world. I've been successful in baseball. She made pies for Mark's roommates down in Florida. Mark and 5 of his roommates have made it to the majors. So Ben calls them magical pies. I also like to recognize Jim Abner. Jim has been a tremendous role model for the post-22 baseball players. He does a lot of things to different people around the state that nobody realized that Jim does. He's a fantastic individual and a friend, but he always tells me, every now and then, he brings me back down. He said, you know, when I was coaching baseball at Kennebec, we beat Post 22. And that is a true story. And last but not least, I would like to thank Patty, my wife, for the commitment that she has given me, the commitment that she has given the program. And I also thank you for your love. Thank you very much.
Kent Hyde. In 1954 at Oneida, the 6'5" senior averaged an incredible 50.4 points a game. His point total and average that season were national records. His high game for the season was 66 points. Previous year, he had helped Oneida win the state Class B title. Hyde had 42 major college offers, but he went to South Dakota State, where as a sophomore, he averaged 17.2 points a game and led the Jackrabbits to their first North Central Conference title in almost 20 years. The next year, he again led South Dakota State to an NCC title as he averaged 19 points and 12.5 rebounds. He set a South Dakota State record with 40 points against Augustana in 1957. He averaged 17.4 points and 11.2 rebounds in his 63-game career at South Dakota State. A ruptured disc in his back, suffered during his senior year, prevented him from trying out with the St. Louis Hawks of the NBA. The Hawks had drafted him after his junior year.
The presenter for Kent is Ron Lenz. Kent and I have something in common. Our senior years We averaged 50.4 points per game. Can't had them all, I had none, but that's not the point. Welcome to the South Dakota State, or South Dakota Hall of Fame, Kent.
Well, after following all these guys, it's a great honor to be able to walk up on this stage, and I want to thank the committee and all the effort that they put into this. It's looks like it's growing every year. I had a chance to play with Jim Sutton in the state championship in 1953, and Jim taught me a lot about basketball. He taught me how to rebound because he could dribble the ball up the floor and score. And the only way I was going to get a chance to score was to learn how to rebound. Well, the next year he left, so I did get a chance to score a little bit more. And but then I made a mistake and I followed him on to college. But you know, it's a great legacy to be able to come from a little town that had a Smokey Joe Mendel, who won the state track championship all by himself, and then Bill Jordan, who's a member of this group, and Jim Sutton, and then to be able to go on to college and be coached by Sox Walseth and Jim Iverson. It's really a distinct honor to be able to be in with that type of a group. Thanks again, and I appreciate the honor.
Thanks for coming. Thanks to the participants. I think we'll keep this going. Having the presenters up here reminds me of American Idol. We want to thank, as a committee, Jim Erickson, who's back there handling the sound, and Jim was the young man who put together the pieces that you saw in each person. And he owns a company called Family Focus Productions. We want to thank again the inductees and their families for coming, and also the past recipients for making this a yearly stop in your life. We also want to thank South Dakota State University, the University of South Dakota, the Philander Indian School, and the Mitchell Daily Republic, the Rapid City Journal, the Los Angeles Times, WNEX Radio, KELO TV, and KOTA TV for their help in allowing Jim to put this together. This whole evening is available for $15. Ron Hoffman is standing now. He will be by the door. If you would like to buy one when you leave, you could stop and see him. Jim's going to put them together. They're $35 if I'm not in them. I would stress the extra $20 investment for posterity. We also encourage you to stick around and mingle and have fun. We also want to thank again our corporate sponsors, Sioux Valley Hospital Systems and also Burger King. The South Dakota Hall of Fame does have a website. It's sdhof.com. There's pictures and stories on anyone that's ever been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that will include this year's recipients as well. The name tag that you have, which is smaller than the one I had in prison, but it's very similar in color. If you would leave that on the table there, and then when you come, you don't have to, that was in unison. It looked like you're doing the wave. That was good. If you'd leave it on the table, we'd appreciate it. Again, stay around as long as you want. Thank you for being here tonight. It's been another tribute to the greatness of South Dakota sports and South Dakota's people, whether you're talking about a gold medal winner like Billy Mills, or someone that taped ankles like Dot Fitzpatrick, or somebody that coached young men to the very highest like Dave Ploof, and everybody else that was inducted tonight. This is a special state, and we all need to take time to appreciate that sometimes, don't we? Good night, everybody, and thanks.